Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 1508 of our daily content grind. So, you might have seen it in yesterday's news roundup and all over, if you hear it from any Transformer fans, there is excitement right now because we found out at TFCon Chicago, as he appeared at a panel, that Eric Siebenaler, a former designer on the Transformers team, is coming back to the franchise, which is a lot of a bigger deal, a much bigger deal. I think a lot of people are giving it credit. So that is what today's video is about. I want to show you just how much he had his hands on. It just kind of reminds you how many of our favorite legacy toys he is responsible for. Now, to be fair, some of these toys are designed in conjunction with designers over at Takara who handle all the engineering of things. But the way all these Transformers have worked, since the 2000s, is Hasbro comes up with the initial designs, color schemes, characters, etc. They send it to Japan, who figure out all the modifications needed to make them real, including like how the engineering on them is going to work. And then you get your final concept that they both write off on. So we talk about when him doing design work, like he comes up and figures out how all this is supposed to work, and then Takara actually makes it work. So yeah, we're not undercutting him, though he does work hand in hand with Takara designers at times. So some of this is, a co-production, but all of this has his hands on it. All of these were birthed from his imagination, and I don't want to take that away. So this is actually an interesting development because we are still kind of reeling from John Warden leaving the Transformers team so suddenly. He was brought on and then let go 6 months later, which kind of shocked everybody because we all kind of expected him to be like in place setting up what Transformers is going to be for the next few years. And then he was just gone. And I think a lot of people were worried that him coming back was going to be a more heavy G1 focus because a lot of his Transformers run in the 2000s was, or in the 2010s, was heavily focused on just G1 and only G1. But I do think those were a little bit drastic. I'm not sure why he was gone so fast, but yeah, it's been weird. So Transformers has been left without extra designers. Mark Marr does a great job, but it's a huge brand. You can't put it all on one person's shoulders. So this is going to alleviate a lot of that, and that's for the best for the franchise. Oh, and by the way, John Warden landed over at Loyal Subjects, where he's actually working on a lot of their licensed stuff, including the mask line. So he's still technically working on Hasbro stuff with transforming vehicles. It's just a little different now. But to focus on Eric for a while, he got his start in 2002 with the Armada toy line, and famously, his very first toy was Laserbeak. They can't all be good. He does admit this is the toy that's the most disappointing to him, but it's his first ever Transformer toy. I'm not going to fault the man on a first draft, right? But that said, he doesn't take long to improve himself. One of my favorite designs of all time came under his watch, which is Overload. Yes, it's a brick because of the way it needs to transform and combine for Optimus Prime. He's just a big brick of a robot. But what a good looking brick, right? Like he is solid chunk, massive robot. I love the aesthetic on this toy. Looks absolutely awesome. I remember the prototype, the gray proto coming out and going like, wow, he looks amazing. Even in gray proto, this toy looks cool. In a weird way, it looks cooler in gray than it did in the red. But yeah, I still love the look of this toy. But that said, function came later. So in Energon, he had his hands on a lot of the designs. There's a lot from, all the way from like the Supreme class Omega Supreme, all the way down to Dive Bomb. A toy design that was so good, we still talk about it today. It's just such a really, it's so good. Like we've gone on about it for the price point back at the time. Like you got a really fantastic toy. One of my favorites from Energon, Prowl. He did Prowl as well. I know a lot of people were down on this toy. Yeah, it's kind of stumpy looking and all that. I kind of like the stumpy look. I kind of like it. I also love the vehicle mode. The vehicle mode is awesome, as is the fact that he makes probably the best, most articulated set of legs in the entire Energon line. And I think his upper body's pretty good too. I think he's like the best, like, overall figure in the deluxe wave. But that said, the more universally agreed on best is Inferno. Yeah, Eric worked on that one too. So yeah, he did a pretty good job. Like, from humble beginnings on Laserbeak, he immediately made himself out to be a fantastic robot designer. And yeah, just really good at working through the gimmicks. And, you know, Inferno, great set of, it's a brick of a leg, but they look good as legs. Upper body was great, looked different from everybody else. Yeah, fantastic. And like I said, he worked on a lot of them. So like, he really did nail a lot of how they integrated together and how the gimmick worked. They can't all be good. But again, one thing about Eric is that his work in the Transformers brand just kept getting better. Yeah, there are some misses in the Unicron trilogy that he had his hands on. It's just going to happen. But oh, he makes up for it. Oh, does he make up for it? So yeah, he's one of the designers, at least as far as we know, the credited designer for Energon, or for a Cybertron Hotshot, one of my favorite toys, one of my favorite designs for a Transformer. So yeah, we know he worked on the Hasbro side. Shogo Hasui worked on it on the Takara side. It's still a fantastic toy, no matter how much work Eric put into it. Again, just the fact that he was creating stuff like this, I think, was incredible. Also has his name on Armor Hide, among a lot of Cybertron toys, but like Armor Hide as well. And I think I stand out on Armor Hide because it's an entirely American designed toy, and it comes out fantastic, you know, specifically designed to bulk out the English version of Cybertron. And it fits in perfectly with all of the Takara engineered stuff. It's a really unique design too. I feel like Takara engineering really focuses in hard on making sure the vehicle stays upright during transformation. So things like using the rear for front details or flipping details upside down to make them more interesting in robot mode kind of escaped Takara designers, which is why I always liked Armor Hide. I felt like it took, you know, an old standard as far as Transformers go, the flat nose truck, and literally flipped it on its head. Great design, great little toy. Also, my beloved. Now, to point out, we do not know if he actually worked on the original Voyager class version of this toy, but we do know that he helped design the Supreme class version of the toy. That's good enough for me. You know, technically, this is a Don Figueroa design. He's the one who created this look for Starscream. But hey, I'm going to credit anyone who brought my favorite design to life, even if it's just a little bit, even if it's just this one little weird version of it. Oh, and then there's that one toy his name is attached to. My favorite Transformer of all time. My favorite toy of all time. This Optimus Prime still defines like near perfection to me. When Eric appeared at TFCon, he actually stated that his intention was to go back and revisit designs that he had previously done. Evan has been on record as saying that he and Takara both want to revisit Cybertron Optimus Prime and make a brand new one. Now, the only way you're going to improve upon this perfection is more anime accurate proportions and higher articulation. Design and function wise, he does everything right and nothing needs to change. But I'm just like staring at this going like, Siebenaler's back. He was the designer on this. Our 2027 Commander slot is wide open. You know, if we're getting, you know, if next year we're getting Armada Jetfire, man, that feels like a perfect timing to do more Unicron Trilogy Commanders in 2027. This is spot on what we would need in that slot. Do not HasLab it because I don't want to wait 2 years for it to ship to me. It gets me excited. It gets me so excited. Now, he dabbles a little bit in a few other Transformer toy lines. Most notably, he has his hands in a couple of alternators, specifically Trax. And I credit Trax because it's one of the very few alternator toys that tries very hard to look and feel like a modern version of the G1 toy. It's got the right upgrades. It has the familiar things of the original Transformer toy, like the missiles going over the shoulders. And more importantly, it's a modern version of his original vehicle mode, something that very few alternators actually got, and like literally, I think 2 of them. And that's even kind of fudging it a little bit, you know, like technically Alternator Hound is not a military style Jeep. It's a consumer Jeep, which is a very different thing, but I'll accept it. I'll take it. We'll work with it. But this is like literally like the most G1 upgraded version in alternators, period. So yeah, credit that he came up with it. Another line that he touched, I think, literally every toy on outside of maybe the mini-cons, Classics. Again, a toy line that a lot of people have fond memories of for good reason. They're really, really good toys. It means he designed the last retail full-size Megatron gun toy that we ever got. And, you know, say what you want about the big wings, but I think given the circumstances and the legal requirements behind that toy, I think he did a really good job. I actually really like that. It's just an upgraded blaster Megatron. And amongst all of the classic toys, yeah, you could point out to any of them, like the longevity that Mirage has, for instance, how solid that Optimus Prime always felt. I think the most impressive thing is the Starscream. Yes, we are all sick and tired of it, but I do think it says a lot that the Takara-designed Robot Master Starscream, attempting to do exactly what this toy did, came out so much worse, and Eric's version comes out so much better. For its time, it was a fantastic toy. You could see that in how many times this got used. 31 uses of this mold before it was finally retired. And even then the mold is not done because you have the Earthrise Seeker that was done a ton of times too, based directly off of this design. Now, yes, that does mean we're very sick of it. Yes, we're very bored of it. Yes, the toy doesn't age well because it's missing important articulation points that would come later. But hey, do not discredit the longevity of the design. You're talking around 40 releases this design had between both molds. That's impressive. That's really impressive. You put respect on Eric's name for that alone. He worked on some of the movie lines too, though not as heavily as he did the Unicron trilogy. So he did help design the Optimus Prime, which I think is a really, really good toy. Even right now, I think I actually have more fun with that toy than I do any of these hyper designed, you know, more realistic ones. He worked on Bone Crusher, which always ends up being one of my favorite toys anytime they do a movie line. They're not all going to be good. But that said, moving into Revenge of the Fallen, he's the one who came up with all those weird little guys we got as Scout Class toys. We all really like that line. I did a whole video devoted just to those oddballs. And that's all from his brain. He came up with those. And they are fantastic little figures. They stand out a lot for how different they are from the Deluxes and Voyagers, especially like when you get to the more complicated ones. He worked into the movies up into the third one, Skyhammer, a popular mold, not one that weirdly never hit me the right way, but I do credit this for having a very atypical helicopter design that, again, defied the usual idea of the front becomes the front of the robot that I think Takara gets stuck on too often. Using the top as the front of the robot means it's one of the few helicopter designs that can actually do something with its propellers. That's rare. That's hard to do. They can't all be good. So I will actually give this a level of credit. He is the guy behind everything in Power Core Combiner. And yes, I think that line could have been done way better. But you have to remember, the whole point of a Power Core Combiner was to see that if kids would still respond to the combiner style of toy line that they'd only very rarely brought back until, before this point. If this toy line had been a total failure, and admittedly, yes, a lot of them ended up in clearance, with this toy line didn't do great. But this is where Hasbro begins to have confidence in combining robots again, which leads us to eventually getting Combiner Wars and bringing back a lot of those classic combiner teams. And all those Constructicons and Aerial Bots you've been collecting this year, this is the reason why Hasbro's confident enough to release them. But I would be doing him a disservice if we did not talk about his greatest body of work in Transformers, and that is the Transformers animated toy line. We've been kind of nervous about the idea of them doing modern animated toys because the key people behind making animated designs work were gone. And Siebenaler is that key piece that's missing. When you hear him talking about revisiting his old creations, this is where you think, especially with Hasbro coming out with their new interpretations of animated toys. Yeah, some of them are produced pretty well. Some of them are, we do have good figures. I do really like that Optimus, but we can agree, whether it's, I guess it's Prime Bulkhead, but like we need a better Bulkhead. Well, we'll point that out. The Wreck Guard that's about to come out is incredibly disappointing. Absolutely not animated Wreck Guard, and it's just the head only. So yeah, he's coming on at just the right time. Before we get into anyone else that might be a little bit sacred, let's actually get the guy responsible for the designs on board. Meaning, before we do any new Lugnut, let's get the guy who made Lugnut work as a toy actually work on it. This would make me excited. We know Hasbro knows how much people love Lugnut, right? Like, we've had fan votes to figure that out. It's also the guy behind Blitzwing, and I do love me a very smooth, fun-looking Blitzwing toy. This was an oddball, but it's a great figure still. Really like this one. One of my favorite designs, Ultra Magnus. Again, going against the grain on tradition here. Yeah, he kind of hits the silhouette of Ultra Magnus while still doing things very differently. I still think this incarnation of Ultra Magnus is highly underrated. I like the big truck halves hanging off the shoulders. Perfect remold for Clench that never happened. Yeah, just this big rolling military truck instead of being a car carrier definitely made him feel like a more intimidating leader amongst the, in that particular universe. You want to talk about coming up with designs. Coming up with Shockwave. Oh my God, how do you make this work? 2 robots and 2 vehicles. The engineering and design work for this is incredible alone. This is one of the most well-engineered toys of all time. And you follow that up with probably like the best engineered figure that he ever produced, which is Lockdown. That deluxe that came up to the size of a Voyager when it first came out. A toy that if done today would be sold as a Voyager because it's so tall. This was a design genius. Let's just make him really slender and bring the entire sides of the car as the legs of the robot, meaning the entire thing is twice as tall as the deluxe normally is. It's genius. It's absolutely brilliant. The last of his work at Hasbro for Transformers was under the Prime First Edition, which means he brought us Starscream, which I think is one of the best deluxes produced of that era. And yeah, probably one of the better ones of all time. I love this toy. He also produced this Optimus Prime. We just talked about this Optimus Prime because I consider it the first mini masterpiece toy we ever got. It's brilliant. It's an absolutely brilliant toy. Love it a lot. The last toy he ever produced for Transformers was the Prime First Edition Viacon, and it's kind of a shame this is his last one to date because it got so overshadowed by the Prime RID version, the mainline deluxe. It's still a good toy. It's still a solid figure. Beyond that, he does have a good sense of humor to him, writing little things here and there for Transformers or helping with some extra funny designs. He did reveal 2 designs for animated, should it have continued into season 4 as we were hoping. The one on the left is Uplink. The one on the right is Tractor, who would have been our first farm vehicle transformer of all time, beating Thunderhoof to the punch by a few years. And just for fun, he came up with Beast Wars Erector for the Hall of Fame video in 2010. Yes, it's a beaver because juvenile humor. I could go on so much longer, but I don't like making videos much longer than this one currently is. To say the least, the man has produced so many toys that people call their favorites of all time, that I call my favorite of all time. And now he is back on the Transformer brand at what feels like exactly the right time. We are dabbling in Transformers Cybertron toys again. We have a long list of Armada toys that need to join the modern versions that we have been slowly getting piece by piece. And yes, with a few animated characters out, it'd be nice to have the designer of that line come back and see if we can do some more that stay true to the designs that Derek Wyatt came up with to begin with. It's exciting. It's a very, very exciting development. So we will see. It might be a year or so before we see the fruits of this, but it is optimistic. I am optimistic. So let's do not that Eric is ever going to see this video, but just in case he's Googling his own name someday, in the comment section, leave me your favorite toy that he designed. You know, this could be literally anything between 2022 or anything between 2002, anything between 2002 and 2010. Most of those toys have his earmark on them. If you check on TF Wiki, you can see a whole list under his name of all the stuff that we know he designed. And that's just stuff we know he designed. So that is it from me. Thank you everyone for watching. And yeah, leave me your favorite toy he created in the comments below. I'm actually interested in seeing like what the most popular ones are. Thank you everyone for watching. I will see you next time. Hello everyone, I am Astral Agent Magnetar, a tokusatsu VTuber, and I am streaming 4 times a week over on Twitch, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday afternoons, and a special late night one on late Friday/early Saturday. So come watch, come hang out, and let's make an impact together.